Chapters 1 and 2 of the Oddball Tetrad of Grunvale New Park are now available on Stormy's Gallery. Visit stormysgallery.com today to jump into the story. The Phoenix has landed. Do I even need to introduce The Simpsons? No, I don't. You know what this show is already. It's the longest running scripted primetime series in the history of American television. And no, I do not mean animated series. I mean series, period. And not by a small margin either, no matter how you measure it. At the time of this review, the shows with the second most seasons and second most episodes are Law & Order SVU with 24 and Gunsmoke with 635 respectively. The Simpsons? The Simpsons is in its 35th season, with 750 episodes and counting belonging to completed seasons. It has almost as many seasons as many shows have episodes, in some cases more, and that's including shows with prominent followings. So what's the point in saying what you already know? The show is legendary and it's got the longevity to prove it. And also, of course, the colorful characters, wide variety of humor, satirical take on the modern world, and when the show calls for it, fun musical numbers and needle drops.
Mono, don't!
It's a cliche at this point to talk about the show's longevity and its impact on pop culture, and it's also a cliche to argue about its supposed decline in quality, both when it started and by how much it's fallen off. My 2 cents? It's been zigzagging since the late 90s, but that's a discussion for another day. One conversation I don't see very often regarding The Simpsons is a topic you think would be discussed more, but knowing the internet's unending desire for negativity, maybe it's just me having unrealistic expectations of people, hence why it's a seasonal rot discussion that's had more. Anyways, the topic I'm alluding to is, what is the show's best episode? Of course, when the topic does come up, the usual answer is some episode from seasons 2 through 8, because those are the only seasons the entire internet can agree upon as the good ones, even though there are plenty of episodes from the later seasons I personally can name you as some of the best. Eternal Moonshine and Gone Maggie Gone, for instance. But I digress. When the topic of Best Simpsons episode comes up, I usually hear answers like Bart gets an F at Gene scratching Mars, Lisa's substitute, Mr. Lisa goes to Washington, Homer at the Batter Street, Carmen Marge, Lisa's first word, Marge first monorail, The Front, Homer's Barbershop Quartet, Cape Fear, TCA's Homer, Lisa's Rival, Homer Batman, and Maggie Bakes 3, Who Shot Mr. Burns, Mother Simpson, 22 short films about Springfield, You Only Move Twice, Hurricane Nettie, Homer's Phone Boy, Homer's Enemy, and of course, the various Treehouses of Horror episodes. That sound like a lot? Well, the entire classic era is beloved. That list is just of the episodes I see talked about the most as the best of the best. Except that's not an exhaustive list of the usual best of the best either. There's also the subject of today's review, that, given events in Hollywood the past year, and I expect to continue for at least the next year, I feel now is the best time to talk about it. Today we're going to be looking at Season 4 Episode 17, Last Exit to Springfield, an episode I nearly always see make an appearance on Best Simpsons Episodes list, even more so than most of the episodes I already brought up. It's basically the Hitchcock cameo of Best Simpsons Episodes lists. Doesn't seem like it should be a core part of the experience, but it is, and you just expect it to show up at some point. Last Exit status is probably the most regular of regulars to the best of lists, would have one convinced that it's the best episode of the entire series. Does it deserve this title? Well, at least in some people's minds it does. There's no such thing as a wrong opinion after all, but there's also the question of just how good this episode is, how well it presents the strengths of the show's classic era, and also why so many people consider the episode to be The Simpsons' best. So let's dive in and see why Last Exit is as beloved as it is. No, I didn't accidentally put on some Saturday morning action cartoon. This is how the episode begins, with a scene from McBain, a series of movies within the Simpsons universe starring the character Rainier Wolfcastle. Even if you somehow haven't seen the show, I don't think I need to say who Wolfcastle is a parody of.
Nice to see you.
No unfunny people perpetuating that unfunny internet meme, The Simpsons did not predict Batman and Robin. It didn't predict the Trump presidency either. Well, okay, it did, but that doesn't mean the show is written by psychics. Also, side note, during research for this review, I learned that there is in fact an actual movie called McBain. It was released in 1991 and stars Christopher Walken. Gotta have more cowbell! Come on, baby, don't fear copyright bots, this is copyright safe. Don't fear copyright bots. The villain in the McBain movie within the show is the cartoonishly evil kind, the kind that toasts human misery out loud,
To human misery.
pulls low IQ moves that give him the upper hand, and laughs maniacally about how evil he is.
That is one evil dude.
It's just a movie, son. There's nobody that evil in real life.
Studio execs that spent months withholding a fair deal for writers and actors, and continue to do so for animators, say hi. And speaking of execs withholding fair deals for employees, this line sets up a Gillikin cut introducing Mr. Burns into the episode, as he watches the final moments of a construction worker before beginning to look over the contract of the power plant's union.
Smithers, where's that union representative? He's 20 minutes late. Whoa! What the hell?
For those not familiar with the history of unions, this is a reference to Jimmy Hoffa, head of the Teamsters Union from 1957 to 1971, who is known to have ties with the Mafia. The story of his rise and fall is a long one, and I want this video to be a cartoon episode review and not a true crime doc. So all you need to know that's important is, he disappeared in 1975, his body was never found, and it's generally accepted that the Mafia whacked him. There are conflicting reports about what happened to Hoffa's body. Some say it was dissolved in a vat of acid, others say it was buried under a baseball stadium in Milwaukee. The latter theory being what this episode pushes for this joke, albeit with a sport change to football. Burns complains about what's outlined in the contract by dropping the "back in my day" line, as we flash back to his childhood in 1909.
Simpson, how old do you think I am?
I don't know. 102?
I'm only 81.
Yeah, Simpsons' disregard for continuity has been going on since the classic era. Sure, the more egregious examples are from the later seasons, but not even the classic era, not even the best episodes of the show, were or are immune to ignoring continuity. And Mr. Burns' age is one of the things that change the most episode to episode when it's brought up. But that's not important right now. Let's focus our attention back on the old fart's happy memory about how shitty life used to be.
You can't treat the working man this way. One day we'll form a union and get the fair and equitable treatment we deserve. Then we'll go too far and get corrupt and shiftless.
To all you anti-union rats watching this video that have decided to take to the comments section right about now, or were planning to, don't even think about it. Yes, unions can become corrupt, just like any other power structure, and the aforementioned Jimmy Hoffa is an example of a corrupt union leader. But some unions being corrupt does not make it correct, morally or factually, to say they are all bad. Unions are a good thing. Strikes are a good thing. It is because of unions and their strikes that workers have health benefits, vacations, weekends, safety measures, and everything else that often gets taken for granted, and corporations want to take away. And believe me, they would at the first opportunity. They have, they do, they will. And if you support scabbing and letting corporations make the working class their bitch, then monkey! Scabs are gross on skin and in unions. Speaking of health benefits being taken away, Mr. Burns decides he's going to go after the union's dental plan as we transition fittingly to a dentist's office.
How often do you brush, Ralph?
3 times a day, sir.
Why must you turn my office into a house of lies? The big book of British smiles.
That's enough! That's enough!
Yeah, Englishmen's teeth really are horrifying, aren't they, Ralph? I bet they're ugly enough to inspire an entire font. Also, yes, to you guys in the audience that have an eye for animation errors, the book does in fact say the big book of British smiles. You'd be surprised how common errors like this occur. And now that I pointed it out, don't go be silly and write the title of my graphic novel series as The Oddball Tetrad of Grunvale New Pork, or in the immortal words of Hank Hill,
I'm gonna kick your ass!
Of course, the real reason we're here is to set up the conflict of the episode from the Simpsons side, as the dentist tells Marge that Lisa is at risk of developing a British smile of her own.
Little Lisa is going to need braces.
Oh no! I'll be socially unpopular. More so.
I'm not saying Lisa Simpson is autistic, I'm just saying that's a very autistic person thing to say.
Here's Lisa today. Without treatment, here's what she'll look like age 18.
Cool! She'll be a freak.
And also a corpse, because there's no way anybody can survive giant teeth, or anything for that matter, being bored through somebody's skull. Yeah, I know the exaggerated teeth are a joke, just saying. Marge tells Homer that Lisa needs braces, which doesn't worry him at first as he expects the union's dental plan to cover it. After a flashback establishing Homer being an idiot when it comes to unions, and how to treat service workers, but that's an unrelated topic I already made a video about, we transition to the union meeting, as the power plant workers prepare to vote on the contract.
We have to vote on Burns' new contract. It's basically the same deal, except we get a free keg of beer for our meeting. And in exchange for that, we have to give up our dental plan.
So long, dental plan!
This is another reason why unions and strikes are important, because if you just say yes to any contract you're given, you make it easy for corporations to take advantage of you, to the point where you sign away human rights like, in this case, healthcare. Thankfully though, Homer sees through what Mr. Burns is trying to pull.
Dental plan!
Lisa needs braces.
Dental plan!
Lisa needs braces.
Dental plan!
Lisa needs braces.
If we give up our dental plan, I'll have to pay for Lisa's braces!
Okay, I'll be real here. I think as a joke this scene goes too long. I did it down so that you only hear the line said 3 times, but this scene goes on for 34 seconds in total. From the first time dental plan plays in Homer's mind, to Homer stating his realization out loud. Yes, I counted. However, I do still appreciate how effectively it shows how some people's minds work. Like seriously, this scene shows the perfect representation of thought processing, both on an auditory level and how the thought process looks from the outside. I know people like to rip on limited animation, but this is one time I think it's called for, even when it means holding on a single frame for seconds. Again, it goes on a bit too long for me to think it's as funny as the episode wants me to think it is, but I still think it succeeds on the merit of showing what the thought process often looks like on the outside, and sounds like on the inside. Hell, that's how my thought process often works sometimes. Bland design! Put glasses on her. Bland design! Put glasses on her. Bland design! Put glasses on her. I gave Margot Hine a bland design, but it gets improved when I put glasses on her. And I've drawn her that way ever since.
Toasty!
Homer manages to sway the union's opinion against the contract and is promptly elected the new union president. Also, the beer keg the contract would have given turns out to be equipped with a security camera. This may seem like a typical cartoon villain move, and, well, it is. But it also shows another reason you don't just take any contract. Corporations can, and will, interpret a contract any way they damn well please. What seems like a gain for workers in the short term can end up in the long term actually a gain for the execs. In this case, a beer keg for the power plant workers being a security camera for Mr. Burns.
Who is that firebrand, Smithers?
That's Homer Simpson, sir. He thwarted your campaign for governor. You ran over his son. He saved the plant from meltdown. His wife painted you in the nude.
Simpsons doesn't always ignore its continuity. At breakfast the next day, the Simpson family discuss Homer's new role as union president, in which he quickly proves himself incompetent.
More so.
Homer is more interested in the potential donuts he'll receive from his potential connections to organized crime. All wheat donuts. Who knew Homer had an inner Benson?
Pick me up a whole wheat donut.
A whole wheat donut?
A whole wheat donut.
And the family sees in action that Homer's bargaining ability is so bad that he'll bargain away his donut for a doorstop.
Go!
However, throughout most of the rest of the episode, Homer manages to be stupid in just the right ways in front of Mr. Burns to seem competent to him. Starting with him trying to get a fudgesicle off his back, which Mr. Burns thinks is exercising.
Hey, Lenny, can you get this sugar daddy off my back? Can you get this sugar daddy off my back?
That's a line that can certainly be misconstrued to mean something else out of context. And speaking of lines that could be misconstrued to mean something else out of context, Homer also mistakes Mr. Burns' attempt to bribe him as, well, advances.
Sorry, Mr. Burns, but I don't go in for these backdoor shenanigans. Sure, I'm flattered, maybe even a little curious, but the answer is no.
Those who know The Simpsons well would know that Homer's acceptance of the LGBTQ+ community is another thing that's been kind of all over the place over the course of the show's run. Everything from seemingly accepting, to outright homophobic, to officiating gay weddings for his own financial benefit after initially protesting against them in the same episode. If you're wondering how the show has been writing him recently in regards to his thoughts on the LGBTQ+ community, he actually performed as a drag queen in a season 30 episode, which leads me to believe he's come around completely. Just thought I'd put that out there. Meanwhile, the Simpson family's lack of a dental plan means Lisa gets fit with the cheapest and ugliest braces available, and also has a yellow submarine-themed dream sequence while under anesthesia.
Look, fellas, it's Lisa in the sky.
No diamonds, though.
You've got the wrong Loud Sister name, and even then, her suit's not the diamond, it's the spade. And speaking of movie references...
The mirror. The mirror!
This is how you do movie references right, people. Many shows and movies tend to think that merely referencing a piece of media makes it funny and or an homage. Like, not even doing anything with the reference, just referencing it. That's Seltzerberg mentality. and no media creator wants to be a Seltzerberg. The key to a good reference is making it work within the context of the story and not feel jarring. You don't need to be familiar with what it's referencing to appreciate the scene. For reference, there's a Big City Greens segment called Date Night that has a scene where Cricket and Gabrielle are causing havoc in a restaurant. And during the commotion, this happens. You don't need to be familiar with Paul Terry's original Three Bears cartoon to appreciate the scene. It fits with what's happening around it. And in the case of the Simpsons episode, you don't need to have seen Tim Burton's Batman, even though you should, it's a top-tier superhero movie, to appreciate this scene. It works within the context of the episode's story, and showing how Lisa hates how the braces look on her. And is an effective homage on top of that. Add that to your list of writing tips. References alone are not good writing. They're stealing. It's what you do with the references that make them unique. After seeing Lisa's new braces scare Santa's little helper, Homer is taken in by hired goons to Burns' mansion, where Burns gives Homer a tour in an attempt to get him on his good side.
This is the largest TV in the free world.
Because I was curious and love useless trivia, I actually did look up what the largest TV ever made is. And my research tells me that it's the Titan Zeus at 370 inches. However, that's a flat screen, and this Simpsons episode is from the era of CRTs, so that left me with a more accurate question to ask: what's the largest CRT television ever made? Research tells me that it's the Sony PVM 4300, a 43-inch, 440-pound behemoth. And I bring up the weight because a TV of the size Mr. Burns has would likely have trouble even working due to the square cube law. But also would have to be built in the mansion itself, because not even Burns Manor can handle a semi, or anything else big enough to carry that thing, even being inside it without collapsing. What I'm trying to say is, this TV could only exist in the world of cartoons. Burns also has 1,000 monkeys and 1,000 typewriters.
Let's see. It was the best of times. It was the blurst of times. You stupid monkey.
What are you cutting me for? I don't have any big analysis to make here. This line's just funny and iconic, and that's why I showed it. When Burns and Homer sit down to finally discuss the contract, Burns ends up dropping a bunch of urine-related double entendres that fill Homer with the urge to urinate!
Which way to the bathroom?
Oh, it's the 23rd door on the left.
Nope. Nope. Nope.
Find the bathroom all right?
Yeah.
Well, I did say that he urinated, not that he used the toilet. Burns has taken Homer's role in the talks to mean that he... Well, that bit of slapstick it's different knowing about John Landis. Anyways, he takes Homer for a strong-willed leader and threatens to grind him into the earth like a bug, while engaging in slapstick similar to what Homer has gone through before.
A bug, I tell you! A bug!
Feeling pressured and disrespected by Mr. Burns and his co-workers, Homer attempts to resign at the next union meeting, only to be mistaken for calling for a strike.
All in favor of a strike? Aye! All opposed?
Nay. It was him.
Oh hell no, you're not getting away from me. Monkey! The union goes on strike the next day, with Lisa singing a Joan Baez-style protest song, which I'll not play here as a precaution against copyright bots, but I'll give a few notes as to what I think. 1. Lisa's / Yeardley Smith's singing voice is hella underrated. 2. It's interesting seeing Lisa play an instrument other than her signature saxophone, and being quite proficient at it too. And yes, I know the intro since the HD era have occasionally shown Lisa playing other instruments, but, well, whether or not the intro is canon is up for debate. And 3rd, I love me some classical gas. For those wondering what that song is, again, can't play it because copyright. So I'll just play this song that has a similar rhythm. It sounds kind of like that, but with an orchestra. Meanwhile, Mr. Burns resorts to increasingly drastic measures to break the union strike. First by hiring 1930s strikebreakers.
One trick is to tell them stories that don't go anywhere. I needed a new heel for my shoe. So, I decided to go to Morganville, which is what they call Shelbyville in those days. So I tied an onion to my belt.
Do I sound like that when I spout trivia? No, it's the world who is wrong. Burns then tries to break the strike himself by spraying the strikers with a hose, which also fails because his body is that light in his old age. Then he tries to have robots run the plant. Take a guess how that ends up.
Rush.
I give it a few generations before DALL-E, ChatGPT, Midjourney, and the other AI programs after creative jobs gain sentience and do the same to those that use them. And of course by generations, I mean generations of technology. Finally, Mr. Burns decides to cut power to all of Springfield, and... well, you know how earlier I was talking about how to do references the right way? Well, now we have a Grinch reference that hits all the marks. It works within the context of the scene without feeling like it's holding up a neon sign saying it's a reference. Mr. Burns has motivations similar to the Grinch in the specific scene it's referencing, that being he's trying to break the spirit of the Strikers like the Grinch tried to break the spirit of the Who's, and you can appreciate the scene on its own, even if you haven't seen the original Grinch special. Somehow. Point I'm trying to make is, this is some top tier writing when it comes to making references. Classic Simpsons in general is top tier writing, but you get what I mean. Mr. Burns finally decides to give the workers their dental plans on the condition that Homer give up his position as union leader, to which Homer gladly accepts.
I'm beginning to think that Homer Simpson was not the brilliant tactician I thought he was.
No, he was not. But I'll get to that point in just a moment. The strike is brought to an end, Burns restores power to Springfield, and Lisa gets a much better pair of braces as we get an ending poking fun at typical sitcom endings.
Oops, I left the gas on.
And that was Last Exit to Springfield. Is it the best episode of the series? Again, opinions are subjective. But is it as good as everyone says it is? Yes. Yes, it absolutely is. The humor around unions hits the mark, it's got some of the most iconic moments in the series, the pop cultural references don't feel like they're just being references for the sake of it, and it also does well showcasing Homer at his best, particularly in regards to his stupidity. Speaking of which, on this recent watch, I realized this episode showcases examples of a term coined in an earlier Simpsons episode.
Wow! Looks like I pulled a Homer!
Pulling a Homer. This term originates from the third season's 5th episode, Homer Defined, and the episode defines pulling a Homer as to succeed despite idiocy. In the episode, Homer, having ignored his nuclear safety training upon being hired, saves Springfield from a nuclear meltdown by choosing the override button through the eeny meeny miny mo rhyme. The world not knowing the circumstances, he is hailed a hero for saving the town. It's not until neighboring Shelbyville is under threat from a meltdown, and Homer again chooses the override button through the rhyme, that he's found to be just an idiot who made a lucky move twice, which leads to the term pulling a Homer being coined. In the case of Last Exit, Homer doesn't just succeed despite his idiocy, he succeeds because of it. Trying to get a fudgesicle off his back, mistaken for exercising. Mistaking intents to bribe as being hit on, mistaken for being an honest leader. Leaving to use the bathroom because he drank too much, mistaken for being hard to negotiate with. And even him trying to step down as union president, mistaken for calling for a strike. In a way, Last Exit can be argued to be a spiritual successor to Homer Defined, at least when it comes to the idea of pulling a Homer. This episode takes pulling a Homer to another level. Homer doesn't just succeed in this episode despite his idiocy, he fails upwards and ultimately succeeds because of it. That's another reason this episode succeeds so well as a comedy. It doesn't just have funny jokes, funny gags, funny scenes. It's funny down to its premise. And for that, I must agree with the consensus that this episode is indeed one of the best episodes ever to come out of The Simpsons. And to close out, congratulations to all the industries who have either secured fair deals or managed to unionize in the past year. Hopefully we have a bright 2024 to look forward to, and the animators too will secure a good deal, without having to go on strike, and the execs won't pull any dirty, underhanded tactics on them. Oh. Still trying to turn filmmakers' hard work into tax write-offs, are you, Zaslav? Well then, in that case, Zaslav, we'll be seeing you on the picket line next year. If you aren't in jail by then. And now it is time for the Phoenix to fly off. Until next time, take care, stay safe, be good to each other, support an Asimovian meant for AI, and have a good one.